Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms. Who you are as an investor is often influenced by who you know and how you know them. Today, we're going to talk about your social network. Who are you around? What do they have you thinking? Where are they helping you to go? And we've got an amazing guest today on the Real Estate Guys radio program. Are you achieving everything you want in life? What if there was a time-tested way for you to get everything you've dreamed of? The most successful people in life set goals and keep themselves accountable. But how? The good news is that it's not rocket science. You too can learn the skills and unleash the motivation that will create success in your life. And now is the time. Hi, this is Robert Helms, and I'd like to personally invite you to attend Create Your Future, the 2018 Goals Retreat, January 5th to 7th in beautiful Lake Las Vegas, Nevada. This unique weekend event has been called phenomenal, inspirational, and life-changing by the hundreds of people that have attended. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com and click events or call 888-489-7723, extension 18. Get your life back on track physically, spiritually, and financially. Attend the 2018 Goals Retreat on the first weekend of the new year. Click events at realestateguysradio.com to register. This is no dress rehearsal. Live the life you were meant to. Visit realestateguysradio.com or call 888-489-7723, extension 18 today. Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio show. I'm your host, Robert Helms. With me, as usual, co-host financial strategist Russell Gray.
Hey, Robert.
So fun to get around real estate investors and talk real estate. And as we do that, we are doing two things. We are learning and interacting, but we're also building our network of people. And today we're going to spend some time on what we call your social capital.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about yourself as you incorporated, and then you think about what a business really is and really does, the one thing common to all businesses where all the value is in goodwill. Is when you go out and you build relationships with the marketplace. You have loyal customers, loyal vendors, loyal employees. As a business, you have people who bring their intellect and their effort and their pocketbook to work and synergize in your machinery, and that's how you have a profitable, enduring business. And when people step out of any of those and they break relationship with their customer base, they ruin their brand, so to speak, they're weaker. When you lose customers, when you lose employees, when your vendors won't cooperate with you, you can go on and on. Well, it's the same thing true with you as a human being. And so if you think about that, of all the things you could do in your life, building your social network, building up the people who know you, like you, trust you, and are willing to do business with you on some level, whatever that looks like, you become more powerful. You become more safe, more resilient, to borrow from today's guest's writings. So to us, it's one of the most important things you can do. The secrets of successful syndication, one of the topics that I teach on is the marketing yourself. We call it build your brand, build your network. And the message basically is this: if you will build your brand, people know you, like you, and build your network, the number of people, then when you find a good deal and you take it to that large group of people who know you and like you, the odds of them wanting to invest with you are high. So build your brand, build your network is really the mission of being a syndicator. But it's not just syndication, it's everybody. And I think really that's the message.
This is a business of cooperation. And one of the many things we say that you're probably sick of hearing if you listen all the time is that the real estate is a relationship business. It's not a number crunching business. It's not a paint on the wall business. It's not a wholesale, get the best deal, flip the house, and make money business. Those things are all important. You got to analyze the market. You got to know demographics. But at the end of the day, it is the relationships. Think about your real estate business right now and think about the strongest relationship you have. It might be with a broker. It might be with a wholesaler. It might be with a vendor that you use. Wherever your strong relationship is, you probably get a lot of joy and make a lot of money from that connection. And the more people you're connected to, the better. Social capital is like financial capital. Our financial capital is easy to count. We look in the accounts and say, I have this much. Social capital, a little harder to count.
It's actually getting easier, though, because you have things like LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter where you can see how many people you are connected to. Of course, it isn't just the quantity of connections, though. It's the quality of those connections. It's not just the quality of the connection between the two people, but it's who the person is on the other end. And so we've said for many years, borrowing from many great personal development speakers, this is one of Kenny McElroy's first pieces of advice he'll ever give you, is if you want to change your life, change who you hang around with, change your network. You know, what they say is your net worth is your network. That's another one. So these are little trite sayings, but they're so true. The reason they resonate with people is because it seems like common sense. And when someone says it to you, you're like, duh. But then I see some people go into marketplaces and they completely forget. Just a typical real estate investor. They pick out a market that they think they like, and they show up and they pick somebody to work with, and they go around and they look at properties. Or they start out looking at properties and then they find a sign or somebody's got the listing, and then they make contact. So they started with the property, then found the person, and then they negotiate with the person trying to get their commission down or trying to get the price down and to get into their pocketbook to get a little extra meat on the bone for themselves. And that's one way to approach a marketplace.
Yep.
We have a completely different approach. We pick a marketplace and then we go in and we don't spend 1 minute of our time looking for a property. We spend all of our time looking for the right person and the right team. And then when we want a property, we call that person or that team and say, hey guys, here's what we're looking for. Tell us where to wire the money when you find it. That's a way easier way to invest. And this is exactly what we're talking about, is building those social connections so that when you have a need and you're ready to have an exchange of value, because it's not about you and what you need, it's about you exchanging value for value. Who are you going to trade with? Who are you going to do business with? That's what a social network can do for you.
And let's clear up the sentence that you said, which is it's easier. It is a lot easier once you've built it. But building it takes work.
Absolutely.
A lot more work. It's like learning to type, or it's like learning real estate basics. You go through it and you take classes and you try to understand and get your mind around tax law and understand real estate contract law and all that. You get that basis of understanding. It'll serve you the rest of your life. When you're building your network, they will serve you and you will serve them. And this is an attitude of gratitude. It's not, who can I get in my Rolodex? Who can I grab a business card at an event and go get up on LinkedIn? I mean, that's a way to build your network, but we're going to talk more strategically before we're done about that. First, we're going to set some context, and that is through an amazing guest, a gentleman who we've admired from afar. He's now become a very good friend. We had him on the show a couple years ago talking about his amazing book, Prosper. Chris Martenson is a PhD. He's a scientist by training. He and his partner, Adam Taggart, have an amazing business at Peak Prosperity, and their book, Prosper, talks about not one, but 8 forms of capital. So when we hear from Chris, we'll back up a little bit and talk about the 8 forms of capital. Then we'll get into a deep dive on this social capital, one of the most critical things for you to have as a real estate investor. When we come back, Chris Martenson on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
Real estate investment advice right in your mailbox. Sign up for the free Real Estate Guys newsletter at realestateguysradio.com.
Hi, this is Patrick Donahoe, CEO of Paradigm Life. Wall Street and banks spend billions of dollars per year in advertising with the goal to convince you that they are the solution. But take a look around. None of their advice has worked. If you're listening to this, odds are pretty good that you're already a real estate investor, or at least becoming one. So why do you do it? Is it to hedge inflation, the tax benefits, or maybe it's to get your money away from Wall Street? It's because of these benefits and so many more that I created the Real Estate Investor's Guide to the Perpetual Wealth Strategy. When you combine successful real estate investing with the Perpetual Wealth Strategy, you have the recipe for what has helped the wealthy to establish their financial well-being for decades. You can download the Real Estate Investor's Guide to the Perpetual Wealth Strategy today by clicking the Resources tab on the Real Estate Guys Radio homepage. Don't wait. Go download it now.
For investors, timberland has become the symbol of safety. Global tropical timber demand continues to surge as the world's population increases. The need for managed, sustainable timber production forests has never been greater. When stock markets crash, trees keep growing. Direct ownership of fully managed tropical timberland acreage is now available to accredited investors. Prime valuable hardwood groves close to the beautiful Costa Rican border generate and maintain superior long-term wealth. Qualified, accredited investors should email timber@realestateguysradio.com for more information. Consider visiting our forest plantations to see for yourself. Email timber@realestateguysradio.com. This announcement does not constitute either an offer to sell securities or a solicitation of an offer to purchase. Offering made by prospectus only. For more information, email timber@realestateguysradio.com.
Hi, this is Peter Schiff, and you are listening to The Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program, heard every weekend on this great radio station and all the time at realestateguysradio.com. We love to get around big brains, and we have one for you today. He's a PhD, but more importantly, just a super nice guy. Let's welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program, Chris Martenson. How are you?
Hey, I'm really good. So good to be back with you. It's been a while since we've been on the program, but it's just wonderful to be back here.
You know, I enjoyed our interview and then read your book, and it literally changed me. I think Prosper is something that everybody needs to read, and it's a book you can take action on, which I love. We'll get to the book a little bit, but since then, since we were on the radio, we've had a chance to sail together on the Summit at Sea and gotten close to you guys, and it's been really awesome. And you know, a big part of what you and Adam talk about is the idea of becoming prepared, just in general. Kind of speak to us about that mentality of, instead of just doing every day like the last day, of stepping back a little bit and planning the big picture.
Well, sure. You know, my work in the world started when I began to widen my lens up a little bit, and I looked at these big trends, right? And so a lot of people say, "Oh, Chris, are you a forecaster? Are you a futurist? Are you a visionary?" And the answer is no. I'm a guy who can see something heading in a direction, put a ruler under it, and say, "We're probably going to keep going that way."
Yeah.
And there's some implications to all of this. So, sure, people have heard about all the hurricanes we had this year in 2017. They've heard about the fires in California. There have been floods. These are some things people can prepare to, but it's around natural disasters. We're watching, in the work we do, what I'm going to call a debt disaster is coming. There's a fiscal disaster coming, just because we haven't attended as a nation to the very basics of life. We've let the foundations get a little rotten in all of this. And I'm not saying I know what's going to happen or when, but I am saying people ought to be ready for this. And a lot of times people hear that, Robert, and they say, "Oh, I guess you mean I'm gonna buy some food for storage," or very prepper stuff. Because the United States loves to, and the media in particular loves to think that as soon as you are preparing for something, they think, "Oh, you're in a bunker."
Right.
And you got a little tinfoil hat. And that's not what we're about at all.
No, clearly. And as we've got to know you guys, it's true. But one of the things you talk about, which is great, is you spend a lot of time focusing on energy. And not just like from a financial perspective, but the fact that we tend to take for granted just how much energy is important in our lives.
It's the number one thing. And so this is my deeper background. I'm a scientist by training in a life science, and that's just the study of energy, really. How cells grow and divide, and how organisms grow and divide into their available food source, and all of this and that. And what most people don't know, because we are the proverbial fish swimming in water, this water is the fossil fuels we started to pull out of the ground about 200 years ago.
Yeah.
And it makes our lives wonderful, abundant, easy. I have such gratitude for the energy in my life, but I'm also not taking it for granted. And we're at a really interesting part of the story where we can see that the amount of net energy, important concept, the amount of net energy available to all of us to use to make these wonderful lives we live, that's declining and has been for a while. And if you understand that, you all of a sudden understand why middle class incomes have been just sort of slowly eroding, and why really good jobs aren't showing up like they used to for a broad middle class. It explains a lot. And I think once people understand that, you can then both fashion your future life around this information, but also take steps today that it's going to make your life better today anyway.
Anyway, right.
Right.
And I think the overlay on that is the fact that at the same time, and you do a brilliant job of explaining this, that all economies and all business and all governments are based on an economic growth. So how do we have growth and more and higher GDP and more production when we have diminishing net energy?
That's the conundrum. And if people could wake up to that, and it's not taught in schools, and our media spends almost no time on it. It's not hard to get across. That's what my first book, The Crash Course, and all the video series similarly titled The Crash Course do. It just wants to make this point. We have an economy that's growing, and it wants to grow exponentially.
Yep.
And it can only do that if it has exponentially more energy. Let's look at the energy story, right?
Now, and of course, a lot of people say, well, but there's all this new alternative energy. There's wind and there's solar and there's all that. But you point out that even though those are great ideas, and there's certainly some clean energy thoughts that make a lot of sense, what we get out of that, the output of that, is so tiny.
It's minuscule for starters. It might grow, but it still doesn't have the net energy return that we get when you stick a straw in the ground, and for the next 70 years, 3,000 barrels a day of this awesome, tasty stuff called crude comes out, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And so what I'm not saying is that it all ends, but I am saying that if you have a future that's based on the past, right? You're saying, oh, well, we've always had this energy, therefore we will always have this energy. That's a very poor bet to make. Make it, but hedge, right? And so there's going to be a different future coming. We're already starting to feel it. We can, here we are, we're in New Orleans at the moment. It has not yet fully recovered from an insult that it received 12 years ago.
Right.
And part of that is because it takes energy to recover from an insult. You know that as you get older. I'm 55 now. I know that if I go out on the basketball court and blow an Achilles tendon, it's going to be different than when I was 18.
It is. And, you brought up, obviously, the storms and so forth. You look at how long are these islands out of power, and how does life change? I mean, the basics of life, when you have no access to clean
Right.
water and electricity, cell phone, all the things we take for granted.
Absolutely. And part of that is, look, things change sometimes. Sometimes things go wrong. There's reasons, like it could be a hurricane, or it could be, we just had a failure in the grid somehow because software got corrupted, or there was something from the sun came down. We don't know why these things happen, but my great-grandfather wrote memoirs, and he penned them in 1914. And I was reading about this. He came from a really well-to-do family in upstate New York. I come from a long line of bankers. They were fine. He remembered, his prime memory as a teenager was how much he hated the chores of the farm. Every fall they had to slaughter the pigs and put the meat up in the smokehouse. They had to, put the barrels of apples down in the basement. He hated all that stuff. But as recently as my great-grandfather, nobody would have thought of going into winter without knowing exactly where all their food came from. And that was true for all of human history.
Right.
Until very recently. And now we think this is just how it is, this is how it will always be. And I like to remind people within my personal possessions of my direct forebears, I have evidence that wasn't always true.
Yeah. And so this takes a while to get your mind around.
It does.
And the logic is, okay, I get that. But what I really appreciate about you guys is you talk a lot more about what you can do about it. So let's talk about this concept you have in Prosper about the 8 forms of capital.
Here's the thing. When people hear like the story of change, sometimes they get that sphincter tightening moment. They're like, and they get afraid.
Yeah.
And so once we get past that early fear, we say, look, there's things you can and should do. And by the way, if you do these things, you'll make your life better today. And I'm not just talk here. Everything that Adam Taggart, my co-partner in crime around this, and myself have mentioned in this book, Prosper, are all things we've done.
Yeah.
Right? So financial capital, people know the term. They're familiar with it. Grow it. Take care of it. That's a form. We spend our longest chapters on that.
Yep.
But we have 7 other forms of capital. And the theory here is that if you're rich in all 8 forms of capital, you will be happier, healthier, wealthier today, and more resilient for whatever might come tomorrow.
And many of these forms of capital you can definitely have a direct impact on, but not all of them. So let's talk specifically. And I think in the guise of today, I want to spend a little time on one. You guys did a great little breakout the other day where you talked about the 8, and you could do hours and hours on it, and there was 10 minutes left. So we had audience participation. Let's pick one. We'll do that kind of thing today because I've already picked one. But let's just briefly cover the forms of capital.
Well, sure. So financial is the first one we mentioned. Then there's something called living capital, which is both the health of my body, being healthy, of course, great to, for any time, no matter what's happening, but also the health of the ecosystem around you, rich soils, plants, lots of birds and bees, all of that. So that's living capital.
Yep.
You want to have fresh, clean water, all of that. The next would be material capital, which some people, obviously you can think about in preparing. So that might be solar panels. It could be having a new car instead of an old one. It means buying high durability, simple things that are easy to fix relative to these things that break all the time.
Yep.
All that. So that's material capital. And then you have knowledge capital, which is for us is the intersection between the book learning you've done and the actual experience you've had. Together, those become knowledge. And mastery is in the overlap of those two things. A lot of people think they know stuff, but they don't really until they've tried to do it.
That's a good point. Big difference between book knowledge and butt knowledge.
Absolutely. So read all the books on gardening you want, but until you get your hands dirty, you don't know anything, really, yet.
Yep.
And then there's social capital. Really important. It's not just how many people you know, but how well you know them, and can you really trust each other under a wide variety of circumstances.
Yeah.
So I measure my social capital in how many people could I call right now, if I got a call from home saying there was an emergency, who would come watch my kids? Right. That's one way to measure it. Right? How many numbers are on that list? And then, interestingly, we're at an investment conference. And people voted, and the most hands went up last night in our breakout for emotional capital.
Yeah.
I was pleased by that because it's actually the most important form of capital. I'll give you all other 7 forms in abundance, but if you fall apart at the first hint of trouble, it doesn't matter that you have these other 7 forms in abundance. So emotional capital is important, and that's your ability to withstand and respond and rebound from any insults that might come your way.
Yeah.
You know? We all admire the story of the person who lost everything and it didn't faze them and they kept moving, right? So that's what we mean by emotional capital, is how well do you know yourself so that you can respond with a clear head, particularly when times get tight. Important for traders, important, like there will come another financial crisis.
Yes.
There will be blood in the streets, proverbially. Most people will be frozen with fear, and a few people are going to step in and be able to buy distressed assets at the right time. Right? So that's how we would apply that to trading, at least, or investing.
Yeah, in fact, this is the area we spoke most about last time, was emotional capital. So great stuff.
Yep. Then there's cultural capital, which you can't do much about. You either have it or you don't. You can move towards it. But if you're living in Oakland, California, you're going to have a very different cultural experience than if you're living in Topeka, Kansas, right? So you have to sort of take stock of that. But here we are in New Orleans, and a very interesting story. When Katrina came, there were a lot of deaths. There was violence. There was all kinds of things that happened. We can see natural disasters like in Japan. They had this huge, massively destructive earthquake and the tsunami. Not one story of looting, violence. People were breaking up, the cases of water and handing them to the people behind them in line. Very different culture around how you behave when times get tight. So that's what we mean by cultural capital. Okay. And it's kind of, you can't buy it. You can't really even make it. It takes a long time to shift. So you either move into it or take stock of what you have.
Be aware of it, yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, we would have time capital. And this isn't just making better lists and being, good prioritizers and all of that. Yeah. Time is our most important asset. And so when you really embody the time capital piece of what we're talking about, what you can have is more gratitude for every moment that you're actually here. So this is an opportunity to take stock of the fact that you get to waste one life, so don't waste it. Right? and this is really seize it. Like this is an amazing, extraordinary, exciting time to be alive.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are choosing to check out, unfortunately. That's why President Trump had to talk about an opioid epidemic.
Right.
And we have a lot of people checking out with too much video games or whatever's happening. But this is actually an extremely exciting time to be alive because the rules are being rewritten. You can be part of that. So that's where time capital starts to come in. It's just that reminder, this is it. Here we are.
Our guest is Chris Martenson, the author of The Crash Course and Prosper. We come back. We're going to play Real Estate Trivia, give you a chance to win a copy of the book, and we're going to talk about one of the most important forms of capital. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Need help with your real estate investment portfolio? Check out the resources page at realestateguysradio.com.
Forbes rated Memphis the best cash flow market in the nation. And our good friend Terry Kerr at Mid-South Home Buyers has been the premier turnkey rental property provider in Memphis for over 13 years. With an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau, Terry has renovated over 750 houses. Real Estate Guys listeners have snapped up hundreds. Discover what these satisfied investors already know. Mid-South's properties are completely renovated with a 1-year warranty and a lifelong rental guarantee. They're affordable, well-managed, and easy to own. Perfect for beginning investors and veterans alike. Get in on the action. Contact Terry and his team via email at midsouth@realestateguysradio.com.
If you want to retire in the next 5 years or less through real estate, then please pay close attention. My name is Brad Sumrock, and I've taught thousands of my students how to replace their incomes, quit their jobs, and retire faster than they ever thought possible by not investing in single-family homes. You see, there's a secret to retiring fast with little risk, and it has nothing to do with being a landlord, fixing toilets, or flipping houses. The secret is multi-family apartment buildings. Starting from scratch with zero experience, I managed to pocket over $1 million in cash and retire from my 17-year corporate job within 3 years of apartment investing. Now, this is not your typical no money down real estate training. We believe in smart, hard work for intelligent people. So if you're good with your finances, have a decent job, or saving your money, and you're looking for a change and getting out of the rat race, then investing in apartment buildings might just be the answer you've been looking for. Send an email right now to sumrock@realestateguysradio.com to get the details of my upcoming training event And you'll also receive my free training webinar, Apartment Investing for Beginners. That's Sumrock, SUMROK, at realestateguysradio.com.
Hi, this is Bill Bonner. I'm author of Hormageddon, and I'm the publisher at Agora, where we publish more than 2.5 million readers around the world with the Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. Thanks for tuning into the show today. Oh my gosh, what an amazing guy Chris Martenson is. We'll get back to that interview with Chris after we give you a chance to win his book, Prosper, autographed by Chris and Adam Taggart, his co-author. Yep, it's Real Estate Trivia, which we do every week on the program. And in just a minute, I'm going to give you a trivia question that has something to do with real estate. Your mission, should you decide to accept it, is to figure out the answer and send us your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Include your name, your mailing address, and most importantly, the answer to the question. And the first person with the right answer will get an autographed copy of Prosper by Chris and Adam. I've already told you how much that book has meant to me. Now you can read it and check it out for yourself. Before we give you this week's trivia question, last week on the Real Estate Guys, we had Chris Blasi, Danielle DiMartino Booth, and Nick Giambruno on the show. We asked this: where in the world was granola invented? Well, in fact, the names granula and granola were registered trademarks in the late 19th century, both names used interchangeably. But research shows that granula was invented in Dansville, New York by Dr. James Caleb Jackson at the Jackson Sanitarium in 1863. Here's our real estate trivia question for this week. Name the first national park in the United States. You know, the U.S. has lots of beautiful national parks, but one had to be first. Which was it? If you know or just want to take a guess, send your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. And it's an awesome prize if you're the first with the right answer. It's an autographed copy of the book Prosper by Chris Martenson and Adam Taggart. That's today's real estate trivia question. We're here with the author of Prosper, Chris Martenson, talking about the 8 forms of capital. And I think today, Chris, let's focus on one you said that was critically important. It's one I think that we have really been aware since you brought it to our attention and focused and worked on, and that is social capital. So you give a great example, which is who could you call if something were to happen in your life? And think about any emergency. How well do you know your neighbors? How well do you know the people around you and who is on your speed dial? And so let's talk about how you get social capital.
Well, this is interesting, and you know, whether somebody thinks that maybe they need social capital sort of tactically because the world's gonna be changed or different or maybe even fall apart, whatever their frame of mind is, we know one thing: that if you have rich social capital, you are a happier, healthier person.
Right.
You feel that greater sense of reward, purpose, meaning that we develop our context and our content from the people around us, whether that's in our church group, our local neighborhood group, our business, our family structure, whatever that is. That's where we get our meaning and purpose.
Yep.
There's real opportunities to improve that. We live in a country which is very isolated. When Adam Taggart and I, when we do our long-form seminar, we hand out a self-assessment. We go across all 8 forms of capital, lots of leading questions, yes, no, strong, weak, all that. And invariably, this is the one people self-report as being weakest on. They wish it was different.
Right.
So the question is, well, how do you go about really improving that?
Yeah.
And there's so many steps. We have a lot of them in the book, but a few examples would be, it's all about spending time with people doing stuff.
Yeah.
And for us, this means, like in my own hometown, we hold a potluck once a month. Anybody can come. The list has sort of been growing, and it's anywhere from 20 to 100 people just randomly show up, and then it just sort of self-organizes, and that's something that I do. But what I'm really there to do is to have real conversations with people. So I'll always take the opportunity in that moment, not to say, hey, who are you, what do you do, but like really to find out who they are and then share from myself. So a real key trick to social capital is you have to be the one to take the risk.
Yeah.
You got to step out of your comfort zone, be vulnerable, say something real. Like, hey, here's something that worries me or scares me. Here's something I'm not so good at. Here's a big mistake I just made recently. These are all, hey, we're all human, we're messy, nobody's perfect, so you can step out and be real. And people love it.
Authenticity is the most genuine thing, and I think the issue is for most of us, we live our lives on a very superficial basis. Hi, how are you? How's the weather? How's the family? We never get into those deep questions, but it also takes time. You need to be in rapport, and that's one of the things about social capital is you build it over time. You can't move into a neighborhood and go around and introduce yourself and figure, oh yeah, now I know everybody. Right? This is really getting to know people at a human level.
Absolutely. So I love doing projects with people. right? So, if we have a little pyramid of knowledge, like at the very top, you hardly know anything about a person, tip of the iceberg. I know your name. Maybe I know you live over there.
Yeah.
Maybe a little deeper down, I know where you work. Maybe a little deeper down, I know if you like your work or not. Maybe a little deeper down, I know some stuff that happened to you in your background, right? But ultimately, you get to know a lot about who a person is. But when you're really deep down, you know why they are the way they are. You know the formative experiences. You know that when he loses his keys, that's not a good moment. And, she's great at that. But, you figure out what makes somebody tick.
Yep.
And so that's why doing things with people, you get so much information from that. If you'd played croquet with me as a younger man, you would have learned a lot, because that's a full contact sport as far as I'm concerned. Like, I was way over competitive, right? And so you could see something about that. That's shifted over time. But, it could be something like that. It could be stacking wood. It could be a project you need some help with. But just getting more of that interface, getting the bubble surfaces to line up so that you have the chance to watch how people behave. See what they do. Do they hold the door for everybody, and are they polite to everybody? Or, you get to see these things. And so that's an invitation, again, to just be curious about people. Instead of thinking I know you, or I'm too busy worrying about how I'm presenting myself to you so I can't pay attention, now I'm a much more curious person, because it's almost a little like a game. I'm like, who is this person and why are they the way they are? And what are they really good at? Because here's one thing I've learned. Most people have really extraordinary gifts that are actually hidden.
Yeah.
Like their true gift may not be the thing they're doing in the world.
So
Great
true.
orthopedic surgeon. Turns out a better artist,
Yeah.
is hidden in there.
Well, and this is part of getting to know people anyway. I think the big thing is, imagine some terrible situation happens. You're in Puerto Rico and the power's out for months. The degree of relationships you have and how well you know those people and how well they feel known by you is going to have a big impact on how you come together in your community. But at the same time, it's not all doom and gloom, right? If you have better, stronger social relationships, life is better. It's an enriching life to have people in it that you know.
Right, exactly. So hopefully this isn't too dark for people here, but this happened in Zimbabwe. They had an entire currency collapse where they went from a Zimbabwe dollar meaning something to printing the $100 trillion Zimbabwe note. That was an 8-year burn. There are people in there who saw that coming, and they prepared, and they got some gold, and they got alternative currencies, and they did all these preparation things. And that lasted about a year. This was an 8-year burn, and so this author went in, Philip Haslund, and studied the whole thing and said, what was the defining thing? Like, who were the most successful? Who were thriving at the end of this compared to everybody else? And it turned out it was your social capital. That was the thing that determined who thrived and who didn't, and that was it, right? So put all this food you want aside and get machine guns or whatever you think preparing looks like. At the end of the day, it's your social capital that's going to be your most important asset.
Well, I think that's our thing about searching for that. Take it down to a practical level, right? Obviously, our audience, mostly real estate investors, we talk about it being a relationship business. You get deals and you get service based on how well you play with others. So relationships are critical. My broker, my agent, my CPA, my attorney, I don't want to just have vendor relationships. I want to get to know them and so forth. And that it seems obvious to people once they approach it. It's not just a transaction, it's a relationship. I want to go deep in that relationship, because if someone brings me a fabulous deal, at the end of that, I'm like, let's go do that again, right? And so we build relationship that way. But it's the same way in every aspect of your life. If your kids are involved in sports or music or whatever that is, you probably hang around with other parents who are involved in sports or music or drama. And so you do build these communities. So the point of that is, people already know how to do it. They just haven't strategically sat back and said, ooh, I really need to do this for the following reasons.
Exactly. And a lot of what my work in the world is providing people with hopefully a little bit of that urgency, which says, look, you really need to be doing this stuff. But by the way, once we remind you of that, you're going to say, I should have been doing this anyway. And this is my own story. I went from a 5-bathroom waterfront house in Mystic, Connecticut. I was a vice president of a very large corporation, came across the information that's now in the crash course.
Yep.
It was undistilled at that point, but even then it was enough to scare me, and I'm like, I don't want to live here. This is an unresilient, unsustainable place. Nobody really knows each other. It's kind of shallow. My wife and I made the decision. We moved to a place we judged to be a lot more resilient and more community-oriented. Best move we ever made. I'll be honest. I ran to that place out of fear. I didn't want to be there. Now that I've been there for a little over 10 years, I would run towards it.
Yeah.
Put my sneakers on, and I'm running as fast as I can, because I found a better life.
Yeah.
So what was happening for me was I was living that classic unexamined American life, and I'd grab the brass ring, right? Got the right degrees, worked my way up the corporate ladder. I was there, And I gave it up because the truth is, it wasn't actually really, truthfully, it wasn't what I wanted in the first place. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And that's part of it is it's this self-discovery. And when you have real conversations with people about things that do matter, these kinds of things get exposed. One of our favorite things to do, of course, is to get around people that are thinking differently than we are, and at the same time have some overlap in terms of ideology or philosophy, and build up that social capital with one another, because together everybody's stronger.
Absolutely.
Nobody knows it all. Nobody's been through it all.
Yep.
Right? That experience builds our wisdom. And I think that's the importance of this. And so this is a strategy you can take, is if you don't have strong social capital, it's not hard, but it does take time and it does take effort. You have to genuinely be interested in people. You have to, personally, I'm kind of a shy guy. I realize that doesn't serve me. I'm out of my shell to make sure I am meeting people. Today, I can't say this is 100% because of your book, but today our neighborhood has a monthly dinner where we get together.
Yeah.
The ladies have a luncheon on the first Friday of every month. We have a quarterly function. I fly home tomorrow to be at our quarterly get-together in the neighborhood, block party, and we get to know everybody, and who knows where that's going to lead. It could lead to a great business relationship. It could be a great resource for your kids, but if it hits the fan, I feel like we're living in a place where we have each other's back.
Absolutely, and that's a wonderful feeling. And by the way, for me, this is just a quality of life issue. If everybody, like right now, in my business, I run across a lot of people who will open up and say, I'm kind of worried. Actually, I might have anxiety that's with me, or some people are like, I'm downright afraid.
Yeah.
Right, so that's sort of the emotional tenor, and that's sitting there. I'll tell you why. Because people know things aren't going the right direction.
Yeah.
That's information they have. And they also aren't doing anything about it. And that's actions they're not taking. Well, in between what you know and what you're not doing, that's the gap where anxiety lives. So get rid of it. That's a quality of life issue. Do not go to sleep worried, right?
Stress and strife, there's no room for it. You're right.
No.
You know when you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Well, hey, let's talk about your work at Peak Prosperity, because you guys have a great community, if you will, of a lot of like-minded folks. In fact, this week we got to meet lots of your followers, and you had a little event. And I didn't even tell you this story, but you guys, before you met, you had a group of folks. I met a couple of the guys who live here but weren't part of the conference that were coming to hang out with you guys, and you could just see kind of that camaraderie and all of that. So talk about what you do at Peak Prosperity and how people can get involved.
Absolutely. Well, that's the website, peakprosperity.com. And it's organized around three big pieces. There's the knowing. We think context is everything. If you have to have the understanding, there's no excuse not to know what's happening right now.
Yeah.
So we do a big picture view. So we take big, you have to have the big story about monetary policy, the big story about energy, the big story about where we are ecologically.
Yeah.
And we put those pieces together, hopefully with enough context that people, and we do a good job at this. We're very good at explaining so that
Absolutely.
anybody can get this. This isn't all complex macro theory stuff. When I write and talk, I do this with a certain aunt in mind. So, I'm like, if she's going to get this, we're good.
That's
all
great.
right. So that's a big part, but knowing without doing, useless.
Right.
Maybe it's just anxiety producing. So we're all about the doing. So please tell me when I can stop telling you about the knowing part. I only want to go as far down that list as for you to say, I'm done. What do
Let's
I do?
do it, yeah.
So the doing is where Prosper comes in. That's where the 8 forms of capital and all of that. So we have a whole community of people there, both on the free side. We have a paid subscription newsletter there for people who like to go deeper. But mostly it's a community of people who believe deeply in the message we're bringing forth. And they're very loyal to this idea that both they count on myself to be an evangelizer of this message on a very public way, but they are their individual ambassadors as well for saying, hey, let's have that block party, and here's why. Let's get to know each other better, and here's why. And then the last part of this story is around what we call being. This is a moment in time where it's actually, I think, an existential crisis in the sense that our old story is breaking down, and a new one is coming into place, and that's an awkward moment. So the old story, which my generation still clings to, is the American dream.
Right.
Got to get I'm going to have the house, I'm going to have 2 cars, the 2.5 kids, you have to go to college, all this stuff. My own children, social whiplash, are already saying, I don't know if I want a house or car. I'm not sure about college. It's like one generation. And everything changed. So this is really a story that's resonating a lot with younger people who are looking into the future and saying, we have to do things differently.
Yep.
And they're more about experiences now, and they don't want their stuff to own them. They'd rather own their stuff. They're looking at maybe fewer things, more experiences. They want to have more social interaction with each other in many cases. So this is really a very interesting time to be alive. So how are you going to be in that So for people of my generation, part of what I counsel them is you got to be the wise elder. And you got to understand that what you know that you learned might not be applicable to the future. So how are you going to be valuable? In terms of what you have to offer, because I still have wisdom, skills, experience, just like you do. Some of that's transferable, but there's new stuff coming as well, and that's where it's really fun. This is more like dancing, and the music's changing. You don't quite know what's happening.
Absolutely. Well, that's why we stay plugged into it, and you guys do a great job of keeping us up to speed with lots of different areas. So check out the website at peakprosperity.com. Thrilled to announce you're coming back with us for the second year for the Investors Summit at Sea.
That was absolutely the best time. I talk about it all the time. I learned a lot. I still find myself relating things I learned there. So it's just, that's what a great match. I have a learning organization that I've built. You have a learning organization. I love that when I was sitting in on your resort property, you were talking with Russ about a resort property idea.
Yeah.
And so that could have been a classic sales pitch. Here's this wonderful place. And where you started was, you need to know who you are as an investor. You need to know why you're motivated to do the things you're doing. You need to understand markets and the ones you want to protect. Like you went down this list where the resort property was at the dead end of that list.
Right.
It wasn't the place you started. You started with the things I care about, which is the context is everything and the self-knowledge is what makes it all happen.
So come on out and hang out with both Chris and Adam will be there. We've got an amazing faculty. It's going to be a ton of fun. You get the details at the website, realestateguysradio.com. As always, pleasure to have you here today,
Thank
Mr. Chris
you.
Martenson. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. More when we come back. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Live nationwide, you're listening to the Real Estate Guys. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com.
This portion of the Real Estate Guys radio program is brought to you by International Coffee Farms, where you can own a parcel of land in your very own specialty coffee farm in Panama for as little as $15,000. Here's how it works. Deeded half-acre parcels entitled Specialty Coffee Farms in Boquete, Panama are turnkey managed professionally on your behalf by a team of local experts. Sustainable average income is estimated at 12%, and cash flow can begin within 12 to 15 months from the date of your parcel ownership. International Coffee Farms' mission is to own and operate specialty coffee farms that are economically, environmentally, and socially sustainable. As part of this mission, 20% of the gross profits of each farm is committed to a socially sustainable fund to improve the lives of the Panamanian coffee farm workers and their families. International Coffee Farms currently owns and operates 9 specialty coffee farms with half-acre parcels available for immediate ownership. To find out how you can become a coffee farm owner in Boquete, Panama, email coffee@realestateguysradio.com. That's coffee@realestateguysradio.com.
If you love real estate and have always wanted to own your own business, listen up. The Real Estate Guys and their panel of experts want to teach you how to go full-time fast in the real estate syndication business. These next few years may go down in history as one of the best times ever to acquire investment real estate. There are deals everywhere if you know where to look and how to assemble the resources. The Secrets of Successful Syndication seminar will show you how to make big money doing big deals from a team of experts that have syndicated projects totaling more than $1 billion. Don't wait for someone to give you a raise or create a job for you. Attend the Secrets of Successful Syndication and learn how to build a team, raise capital, find deals, and make full-time money in 6 months or less. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events. All the big players use syndication as a way to diversify risk, optimize profits, and earn big money. You can too. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events.
Hi, this is Kevin Harrington, an original shark from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and you're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. What are you going to be when you grow up? Hey, if you're having any lack of clarity in your life, your mission is to come out to create your future. Our 2018 Goals Retreat happens the very first weekend of the year in beautiful Lake Las Vegas, Nevada. All the details at realestateguysradio.com under events.
Yeah, and I don't want to gloss over that invite because it's actually very relevant to the topic at hand. When you are going to get together with someone, if you've ever walked into a group that you have never been in before, and then you have that feel, you're like, man, I feel like I found my tribe. These people get me, I get them. We feel so aligned. You know, they want out of life what I want. They believe in the things. That's called mission, vision, values. And when you align, when you build relationships based on shared mission, vision, values, which is exactly how we build our brand, that's exactly what we spend our time doing. In order to do that, you have to know who you are. You have to know, what is my mission? What are my values? What is my vision? If you don't have that, then how do you go build a social network based on common values when you don't even know who you are and don't know how to represent yourself fully? So if there's any ambiguity in your own mind and heart about who you are, what you want, what you really want, why you want it, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do in life to get the things you want out of life, then come to this event, Create Your Future. If you go to realestateguysradio.com, click on events, look for Create Your Future. Going to be in Lake Las Vegas, beautiful Lake Las Vegas. And it's Robert Helms at his absolute finest. So he can't say this about him, but I can, because I don't do anything at this thing but just make one little introduction and sit there and soak in the magic. But he will help you ask yourself brilliant questions. I say all the time, if you want great answers, you got to ask great questions. Many times we don't know what questions to ask. And the other thing, though, is you have to be in the right state of mind. You have to be ready to really open up and go deep and pull out of yourself. And Robert just does an amazing, amazing job. It's our highest rated event. So just put it on your calendar. Be there January 5th through 7th, 2018. Create Your Future, realestateguysradio.com. Click on events.
You know, one of the things Chris really pays attention to is this idea of building what our future is going to look like. The premise that he and Adam have is the future is going to be different. The next 20 years will look different than the last 20 years. If they were going to look the same, then we wouldn't have to spend much time on this. But because there's a good chance we're going to see radical shifts in artificial intelligence, in the way that we communicate, in the way we get energy. Pretty important to be thinking about this stuff, and oh my gosh, has he figured it out.
Well, I mean, look at what's going on. Let's just bring it back to real estate. Look what's going on right now in retail. You look at retail, you look at Sears and JCPenney and these companies, malls are failing and Amazon is booming and they're picking a new headquarters and they're changing the face of the business. The pace of change is so fast right now. It isn't like you can just pick a career and ride it out and the next generation will grow up into the next wave of change. In your lifetime, if you're a young person, you might have 3 or 4 mega shifts. We happen to be living in a time where there are major shifts coming. We talk about this on the show all the time. It's not just real estate, it's economic, it's social, it's the power base of the world. I mean, geopolitical. There are so many things going on right now. And yet every day we have to make long-term investment decisions. What neighborhood do I want to invest in? What tenant group do I want to invest in? Do I want to depend on government subsidies or do I want to be free from government subsidies? Do I want to be only in the U.S. or do I want to be diversified and be offshore? These are strategic business decisions we have to make as real estate investors. And if we don't have the context of understanding the pace of change, then we aren't going to be able to take advantage of that. One of the great places, we talk about, social capital. It's not just people you can trade with, but it's people you trade ideas with. It's so gratifying. Like, for example, a few weeks ago, I read an article where we saw that the Chinese were talking about trading oil future contracts in gold-backed yuan. And so it's a big story. It was one of the big stories at the New Orleans Investment Conference. And we were able to pick up the phone because of our social capital, and we were able to call Brian London and Chris Martenson and have a 45-minute private conversation about that, of course, which we recorded and shared with our listeners. But it was so fabulous to be able to do that. Hey, Brian is one of the smartest guys in the gold space. Chris really understands energy and macro trends and some of these unsustainable components of our economic model globally. And to be able to have a 45-minute conversation with these people because we have a social connection was just powerful and empowering, because it gives you a sense of that I'm not going off into this uncertainty of the future unarmed or unequipped. I feel like I've got a bevy of friends that I can call upon. They value my opinion. I'm just happy to have a seat and a voice at the table. But we also can value their opinion, and we can share perspectives, and we kind of do a 360. And it's not like we all agree or decide to do what we're going to do together, but at least we have a chance to get each other's input, and that's very, very powerful.
If by chance you've not read Prosper by Chris Martenson and Adam Taggart, go to the website at realestateguysradio.com under resources and recommended reading, and you'll find it there. Or come join us for the 16th Annual Investors Summit at Sea. Chris will be there, Adam will be there, Brian London will be there, Peter Schiff will be there, Tom Hopkins will be there, G. Edward Griffin will be there, and a whole bunch more awesome people. More to be announced in the coming weeks. Check it all out at realestateguysradio.com. Big thanks to Chris Martenson for sharing his thoughts, his ideas, and his heart with us today. Until next week, go out and make some equity happen.
This episode of the Real Estate Guys radio show is brought to you by Paradigm Life. Powerful cash management strategies using life insurance. Learn more at beyourbank.com. Mid-South Home Buyers. Low-cost, turnkey cash flow properties in Memphis, Tennessee. Corporate Direct. Asset protection strategies for real estate investors from attorney and rich dad advisor Garrett Sutton. Find these and other great companies under the Resources tab at realestateguysradio.com. To learn how you can expose your product or service to the Real Estate Guys audience, call 888-489-7723 extension 4. That's 888-489-7723 extension 4. Or use the feedback page at realestateguysradio.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Real Estate Guys Radio Show.